Morning, students. So, today we are going to start with a very interesting topic of science, that is motion. I know you all must have seen people walking around it, somewhat like people walking around in a straight line, a circular path, or maybe in a spiral path, or in a zigzag manner, whatever manner. They are all walking. So, today's topic is motion, which represents movement, moving of an object from one point to another, or moving of an object in general, right? So first of all, since we are starting with very basic, so like before we go to the circular path or whatever else path, we are gonna start with the very basic, which is motion in a straight line. Before I talk about anything else or any definition required to understand motion, we need to understand the very first concept in it, that is the reference point or the origin. In general, if I need to mark anything, for example, if I say, like, if I move from point A to B, so if I need to give it a quantity that it is given to be, like, let it be like the measurement to be 10 or 20, I need to have a starting point, a point with which I will measure, with relative to which I will measure its movement. Like, for example, if I say this is, suppose this is point C, this is point D. So if I say this is 10, this is 20, and this is again, I guess, 8. So here all these measurements are with reference to a single point, this point A. So here this point A is known as a reference point or the origin. So origin is the point with which every distance or every measurement is made in physics. So with this we will start a topic with the very basic, and the first thing that we are going to discuss is distance. What is distance? Distance is basically the path traveled by an object or by a human or whatever you can say. Like, for example, if I say there is a person named Mohan and he moves from point A to point B, right? So the path traveled by Mohan, this like the one I am moving my pointer right on, is the path traveled by Mohan. He might have traveled like this way. Okay, this is not the only path he might have gone like this, or he might have like gone like this. All these are the path traveled by Mohan. So the distance here in first case, like, we give it a definite numerical value. For example, the first path taken by Mohan, the numerical value, let me say the numerical value supposed to be given here is 10 kilometer. In second, I will say, like, it takes, the path travel is 50, and the third, it is total path travel is 100. Now, first of all, we need to talk about the units. In the units to describe distance is either meter or kilometer. There are several other units too, but here I'm talking about two important units. First is kilometer, which is the SI unit used to describe distance, and then it is meter. Meter is the CGS unit described to used to describe distance. Now let me tell you, like, give me your example. For example, I will show you some certain examples to tell how distance works. For example, this is A to B, and here the total distance traveled by it is 10. Similarly, in another case, so what the person does is he goes from A to point C, which is a distance of 10 kilometer. Then he goes from point C to B, which is again a distance of 10 kilometer. So the total distance traveled while moving from A to B is gonna be A to C added by the distance traveled from C to B, which is gonna be 10 kilometer plus 10 kilometer. That will be 20 kilometer, right? Now I will take one more example where a person starts from point A. He travels a distance of 10 kilometer till B. Then he goes to point C, which is again a distance of 10 kilometer. Then he goes around to point D, 10 kilometer, and then he returns back to the point A, 10 kilometer. So here the distance traveled by the object is, part taken was, first he went from A to B, then he went from B to C, then he went from C to D, and then he went from D to A. So the total distance traveled was 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 10, that means 40 kilometer. Here I have taken this example specifically to tell you that the most important thing over here is that it doesn't depend upon the final destination. It is only telling us the path taken by the body to reach a certain point. It doesn't matter whether he has gone, for example, if he doesn't follow this and he goes on till A to B in a straight line and yet covers a distance for 40 kilometer, it doesn't matter. For me, the path traveled matters, path traveled matter doesn't. What doesn't matter is its finest destination. So because we are not caring about the direction in which the object is moving, that is why we can say that distance is a scalar quantity. It is a scalar quantity. A scalar quantity is a quantity which does not depend on the direction in which it is taking place. It only depends upon the magnitude, on the amount, and distance is a scalar quantity. Now, the next topic we are going to talk about is displacement. To understand displacement, let me take three examples. First of all, let me say that there are three cases to go from A to B, right? Like there are three people who are moving from A to B, but they all have taken three different, like first one, let's say the name is Mohan, and Mohan went from A to B in a very straight path. Okay. Then second is, name is Sudesh, and he went to A to B in very like zigzag manner, or you can say the guy was drunk or whatever. And the last person went to A to B in semicircular path. So let us say the distance here traveled was 10, here the distance traveled was 50, and here the distance traveled was 20. Now, if you look at the three cases carefully, this is the shortest distance covered, then second one, and this is the third. So here, this distance is the shortest distance traveled is 10, and this is called displacement. What is displacement? Displacement is the shortest distance covered by a body, the distance covered or traveled by a body. Let me take one more example. For example, I take an example where an object moves from A to C, which is 10 kilometer, and then he goes from C to B, which is again 10 kilometer, to reach the point P. Now, if you look carefully, the distance over here I have already calculated previously was 10, was A to C plus C to B, which was 10 plus 10, which gives out 20 kilometer. But if I talk about displacement over here, displacement means the shortest path to reach. And if you watch carefully, the shortest path required to reach A to B is not going from A to C and then to B, but the shortest path is this. If I go in a straight line, and if this is 10 kilometers, so the displacement is going to be 10 kilometers. Okay, are you guys clear about that? Now let me take another example. If a body, like I have always also taken this example again, if a body goes from A to B, B to C, and C to D, and then again D to A, all being 10 in number, all magnitudes being 10 in number. Where the distance I have calculated earlier had came out to 40 kilometer, right? But the displacement, what does displacement mean? The shortest path traveled here was, he started from A and ended at A. That means logically the shortest distance traveled was 0. So the displacement came out to be 0. Okay, are you clear what is displacement? Displacement is the shortest path traveled by a body. That was why I was previously focusing on the fact that when I talk about distance, it doesn't matter what the final point is, but in displacement it very much matters what the final destination is, cause it is going to decide what the value of displacement is going to be. It can vary depending upon what is the final point of the path traveled. Now if I talk about displacement is a displacement, the units of displacement is same as um, that of distance, which is meter and kilometer, with meter being the CGS unit and kilometer being the SI unit. But as I've mentioned earlier, it depends upon the part, like depends upon which direction the object is moving, the position of the objects. So we can very clearly say that displacement is a vector quantity. It depends upon the direction taken. For example, let me say how I say it is a vector. So for example, if a body goes from A to D, like I have taken a certain example. If I take from a body has gone from A to B and the distance was 40, then a body has gone A to B, B to C, C to D, and D to A, all being 10, 10, 10, 10. Here, total distance covered by this path is 40, right? We have calculated it many a times. I think you will be familiar. Here also the distance is, but here since the body has returned to the same point, so displacement turns out to be 0 because the body has not moved, like the final position is not any different from the initial position, therefore its displacement is going to be 0. Whereas here the final and initial points are so different that the displacement is 40. The distance was same, so that means it is a vector quantity. It depends upon the direction taken, because the object here went in a straight line without moving anywhere. Displacement came out to be 40. Wherever in this case, when the object took few turns to return to point A, the displacement completely vanished. That means it is a vector quantity. It depends upon the taken, upon the direction in which it is moving. After that, let us move to the next topic, that is speed. Now you all might be wondering what is speed, but let me first of all tell you in mathematically what speed is. After that, I'll tell you what it means, okay, in definition. So what speed is? Speed mathematically means the total distance traveled divided by total time taken. Let me take this example. For example, a body goes from A to C to B is the final destination, and 10 and 10, and it takes him 2 hours to reach from A to B. Total distance traveled to go from A to B was 10 plus 10, that is 10, plus 10, that is 20. Whereas total time taken was 2. So 2, it comes out to be 10. So the unit is 10. And here kilometer per hour is the SI unit of speed. Again, because here we are talking about distance, not displacement, so it is also going to be a scalar quantity. So speed, what does speed mean? Speed basically means the amount. So here I said the speed is 10 kilometer per hour. Here what 10 kilometer per hour represent is that the body travels a distance of 10 kilometer in time of 1 hour. So speed refers to the distance traveled by a body in unit time. Or this is its, okay, sorry, wait. Okay. There has been a certain like I have said kilometer per hour as the SI unit, but what I mean to say, the units to represent speed is kilometer per hour, but the SI unit used to represent speed is meter per second. That means distance should be converted to meters and time should be traveled to converted to seconds in order to be in SI unit. But kilometer per hour is the most like widely used like I will say unit to describe speed. Okay, are you clear with that? What speed is? Speed is basically something, the quantity which is going to tell us about the distance traveled by a body in a unit time, right? If I am saying the units is kilometer per hour, then the speed is going to tell me the amount of kilometers traveled in 1 hour. And if the units is meter per second, then speed is going to travel is going to tell me amount of meters traveled in 1 second. Okay, now let us move to the next topic, that is velocity. Velocity is basically total displacement, mathematically total displacement divided by total time taken. Here I am taking the same example, this example again. So this means A to C, C to B. Here the displacement is going to be 10, right? Because the displacement is the shortest distance traveled, and shortest distance traveled to reach from A to B is going to be 10. So this is 10 kilometer. Time taken was 2 hours, right? Like time taken was 2 hours. So displacement is sorry, velocity is going to be 5 kilometer per hour. Keep in mind units of speed and velocity are same, but velocity is a vector quantity, right? Because it depends upon magnitude plus the direction. When I say velocity, there is important factors included. First is the magnitude, and second is the direction. That is why, that is how velocity and speed are completely different from each other, I guess. Okay, that is all for. I think that is all for today. Like today, we have done 4 topics. First is distance. Second is displacement. Third is speed, and next is velocity. Distance is basically the path traveled, displacement is the shortest path traveled, speed is distance per unit time, and velocity is displacement per unit time. I hope you have gotten all the topics well and will memorize it and try to read about it yourself. And that was all for today's video. Thank you and have a very nice day.